My name's Andy Hill and this is a presentation on the impact of stretching between two 20-metre sprints. So when looking at this, I first wanted to understand the different kind of warm-ups you could do and the impact that it has on players and why we use them in the first place. So what I found was that the benefit of a warm-up is to enhance fundamentally the performance of athletes. A warm-up is also used to increase core temperature, blood flow and the overall performance. And there are different types, as I say, that include static, dynamic and ballistic stretching. For the purpose of the testing that we have done, I'm looking at dynamic stretching, and having looked at this, it consists of functional based exercises which use sport specific movements and movements that are relative to the game that athletes are about to go and play. So the aims of this is to investigate the impact of a dynamic stretch on the time that it would take to complete a 20-metre sprint. So my hypothesis for this, the experimental hypothesis for this test is that I anticipate there will be a change, there will be an impact because of the dynamic stretching on the results in terms of time from sprint 1 before the stretch and sprint 2 post-stretch. The null hypothesis is that in fact there will be no effect at all and that there's no benefit to the dynamic stretching on the performance of the two sprints. So how we did it, we used 18 players from CK Basildon ladies team. The mean age of this group was 19.64 with a deviation of 2.89. We used a training facility at Woodland Secondary School and the warm-up took place in the centre circle. This was on a 3G pitch. So originally what we did was the players warmed up. They had a very light warm-up and some stretches before they undertook the first sprint. They were shown the sprint and the cones to start and finish and a demonstration from one of the coaches to show them what they would need to do. They then undertook the first sprint and were timed using a stopwatch. After this, the players went to the centre circle and took part in a dynamic warm-up, which included heel flicks, high knees, arm rotation, side-to-side movements and leg swings, amongst others, that would replicate movements that they would use in a football game and in the session that we were about to do. After this, they then went back to do the second sprint in the same order that they did the first sprint. So these were the results. You can see the first column is for the pre-stretch and the second was the post-stretch results. For the pre-stretch, there was an average time of 3.81 seconds with a standard deviation of 0.55 seconds. For the post-stretch, there was a mean time of 3.72, which shows a decrease with a standard deviation of 0.51 seconds. Continuing on with the results, the mean difference in time for the pre-stretch sprints was 0.08 and the post-stretch sprints had a mean difference in time of minus 1.94. The test that we used for the sprints to determine whether the results were significant was a t-test, a one-tier t-test, and what we've got back from that is that there was a high level of significance in the data that we used, and this was accepted at 0.001. So whilst looking into the benefits of stretching and the different kinds of stretching that you can do to impact performance, we looked at some literature that's a journal by Baccarat et al. Suggested that stretching is static stretching is the most commonly used because it's easiest and it can be done the most safely because there's limited movement. This was actually then contradicted in other journals and literature, particularly by Young and Baum, who have suggested that actually static stretching reduces strength and power production by between 5 and 30%. So it may be easier and safer, but it actually has a detrimental effect on the performance of a player during activity. In terms of the dynamic stretching, it has actually become more popular through research that has been taken, although there is little research that actually relates this to performance. To conclude and evaluate, the testing has shown that an average time during the 20-metre sprint was quicker on the second one after the stretch than it was on the first sprint. Therefore, we are able to accept the experimental hypothesis that there was in fact a recorded change based on the data taken, and that actually the second sprint on average was quicker than the first sprint. Therefore, the null hypothesis that there would not be an increase in sprint time is rejected. So looking at what we did and what we would do next time and how we could improve that, we could consider timing of when the sprint was actually held. So this could be timing of the day, as we train at night. So typically the girls would have eaten and then come to training to train. And also consider the timing in terms of recovery after a game. So typically they would play a game on a Sunday and train on a Tuesday, so have that 48-hour rest. So we could change that and see if the results would be the same. Also with equipment, we use cones and a stopwatch. So that allows for human error in terms of when you start and stop the watch, so maybe slightly out on timings. One suggestion that we have there is to use laser gates to get a more accurate reading in the future. And then also look to test more regularly. So can we test the players once a month? Can we test them once every 6 weeks and get a true indication of whether the benefits of stretching regularly, dynamically, actually improves performance over a prolonged period of time. Here is the reference list used in this literature. Thank you for watching the presentation.